Welcome to a joint episode of Ember Weekend and EmberLand. I'm here with Chase McCarthy, John Jackson, and Dan McClain. And I'm Robert Jackson.
Hey, Rob. So Chase and I represent. I'm Jonathan Jackson. Chase and I represent Ember Weekend, and we are here with Dan and Rob of EmberLand, the two preeminent superpower podcasts in Ember. We're the only two podcasts that do Ember.
I think that means we're still the best.
Yeah. No, I mean, not to diminish it. I'm just saying there's something to be said about being the only two podcasts that cover Ember exclusively. So it's not a bad thing. But anyways, so Ember Weekend does a lot of newsy type things, and I think EmberLand, you want to characterize yourself? I feel like you're more long form, but maybe you have better words.
Dan can chime in, but I would say that we basically just talk about whatever things seem important to us at the time, and I ramble a lot, and then Dan tries to rein me in. That's I think what I think that categorizes most of the episodes. What do you think, Dan?
Yeah, it's mostly hurting Rob as a cat into a single topic, keeping him on point.
I always think of it like verbose release notes for Ember. Like it seems to be like
that's
nice.
Things coming up.
And then you can get the feeling.
I usually use it to dig into Rob and figure out what's going on in Ember.
Yeah, it's kind of like in Game of Thrones when they have like the making of at the end. That's what it seems like to me.
I have a confession though. I haven't seen Game of Thrones, and I watched the last part of the last episode, and it was really confusing.
Yeah, so it would definitely be confusing.
We're of course not going to spoil it, but I may need counseling and to start watching from the beginning. I don't know.
So this represents our 64th episode, I believe, of Ember Weekend. That's 2 to the 6th, apparently. Wait, that's not right. Somebody help me out here. Somebody wrote this in the show notes. I don't know who did this.
That's right.
Is that right?
Yeah,
okay.
Math.
All right. Yeah, math. I'm great at it, for real. I'm a programmer. And it is. What episode is it for you guys?
I think it will be 22, which is...
Yep.
Yay, cool. So we're broadcasting out of a bunch of different places. Robert and I are in Providence. Dan, I think you're in Boston, right?
South of Boston.
South of
Close
Boston.
enough, though.
Cool. And Chase, you're in...
Still in Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jacksonville. How is it warm there? I saw some weather that looked pretty discerning.
Yeah, it was raining all day, and I was paddleboarding in it, so like I was stuck on a river, like it pouring down rain. So.
Fun. Cool. So yeah, that's what we got for the intro. Let's start talking about stuff. I feel like what we want to do here today is kind of talk maybe about some of our experiences on the island for the Wicked Good Ember conference. I think this is the 3rd one. It was really great. Super awesome conference. Has a vibe totally different than other conferences that I've been to personally. So I guess we'll just go around the horn. Zencaster has us in order. I think Dan. What was your favorite experience on the island?
It's going to be super trolly, but it will probably be beating McSonic in my first game of cornhole.
Yes. The games were really cool this year. I feel like cornhole was cool. There was this Swedish game, maybe, I don't know, but you threw sticks at each other. It was a weird thing.
Well, you didn't throw sticks at people. You had like little things that you had to knock over with sticks.
I played. And there was a castle. Don't forget the castle.
Oh, there's a castle in the middle. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was a really fun game, but yeah, the whole time I just had no idea what was going on. It was confusing.
I didn't have a chance to play that specific game, but when I watched it, my perception of the best way to knock all the sticks down was throw the stick at the person across the way,
and they would
knock
down?
them all over. That I don't know if that's against the rules or not, though.
I'm noticing a trend with all the games there. Everything was throwing something. There was nothing like gentle. It was all like, let's throw these 2 balls attached by a rope at a ladder. Let's throw a beanbag at a cornhole. Let's throw sticks at each other.
When you go outside, you got to throw stuff.
Yeah, and there was another game that I didn't actually get to play. I don't know if you guys did. Called Can Jam, which Luke was playing a lot of, and you like throw a frisbee and then kind of slap it into a can. It's weird. I don't know.
It's like basketball frisbee.
So I will say it was a lot of fun. I only played it for a moment, and it was a lot of fun. Like I don't quite understand all the ins and outs of the rules, but basically you just like throw a frisbee, and then your partner, the person on your team, just tries to slap it into the can, quote unquote.
Yeah, and there's like a little slot, like a letter slot for in the front where you get like more points if you go direct. And
Instant win.
it was an instant
Well,
win.
it's an
Yep.
instant win if you don't get help. If the person throws it and it goes right in the slot, it's an instant win. If they
Instant
throw
win.
it and you tap it into the slot, it's like 3 points or 4 points or something.
And your teammate
Okay.
I
beats
think we
you.
have the title to this episode, Instant Win.
Instant win. Yeah, for real. Yeah, absolutely. It's like the golden snitch of this game. It's like, why would you do anything other than try to go for that? I don't know. Instant. Okay, yeah, Dan's adding the episode title to the thing. All right, I like it. I like it. Yeah. So okay, let's keep going. Chase, what was your favorite experience on the island?
I think it was probably all of the Tomdale trolls. Like, there's a couple times when like he would ask a really trolly question, or like his whole talk, just all of the I don't know, the like interesting little like uh, tidbits I learned about like other frameworks and things that are coming up in Ember, but it's all in a very like trolly way, so it was super entertaining. Uh, but very friendly in a very
Yeah,
friendly
yeah,
trolly
yeah.
way.
I was about to say it's still like it didn't feel like it was like angry troll. It was kind of nice troll, like the React thing where he's talking about React starter kits, and he kept
Yes.
he had the central like pylon of different plugins you would have to have, and you build these things. And it went to the right, and you're like, okay, he's done now. And then it goes to the third column, or whatever. That was yeah, you're right. That was wonderful.
The best part of that too is like, oh, you're just making this up. It's like, no, this is actually the item in this list of items.
In his like extensive list of items, you scroll down. That was oh man.
Right,
Um,
and I would have scrolled more, but Keynote wouldn't let me animate it that far. Like it already hit the limit of Keynote's animation.
oh man,
But
that's so rough.
but then
That's
the,
rough.
the Phoenix one was the best. Like Rob got up and asked, why didn't he just use Phoenix instead of Ember? And he totally just nailed it. Like the whole like,
I don't know.
oh,
He had to have known that was coming. I don't understand how he responded so well, but
Well, that also sprang from his original troll question of the other keynote, which I was part of,
Right.
where he's like, "Why wouldn't you use Node instead of Phoenix?" And then it turned into a part where he goes, "It's 30-year-old technology. It was before they discovered async," which I thought was the killer line of that.
yes. Well, he's like, that's like driving around a Pinto. You wouldn't be driving a Pinto, would you?
For the same
Yep.
reasons.
Yeah,
That was
for
the
the
best
same reasons.
part. Yeah, yeah. That's another really good title. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, the trolls were just all over the place. They were so good. They were so good. Yeah, Rob. So what was your favorite experience of the conference?
so I gotta say, my favorite thing. So I watched all the talks, but I was all in the very back. There was a few talks that were really really interesting to me, but I'd say my absolute favorite part of the whole conference, the whole experience, was just connecting with all the people in the community, people that I have known or just like met a bunch of new people, and it was like really really awesome. The conference was set up in such a way that you had like free time, so like there was a large gap for lunch, so both so you could eat and also like now you could talk to people or you could like divvy up and play games like we mentioned earlier. And but it was a really awesome opportunity to chat and circle around with people. For example, like Chris Selden and I rarely get a chance to pair, and we were able to like pair on a bunch of things, and it was a ton of fun. It was I think that's probably my favorite part of the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed like sitting around the campfire on the second night. I want to say that was a lot of fun. People were trying to make during that period of time. They were trying to make bacon wrapped marshmallows, and I don't know if you've ever.
I feel like the marshmallow would melt before the bacon's cooked.
Yeah, it
That's what
was.
most people learn that.
Yeah, we learned a lot of interesting things about physics.
I mean, I've seen Ghostbusters. Like marshmallows turn into liquid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
So,
Like,
so what it turns out is you have to you cook the bacon first, and then you put it in the marshmallow,
So it's
and
like
then
a
you make a
pre
s'more out of it, and it's the
yeah,
best s'more ever.
but many marshmallows and pieces of bacon were lost in the process.
No, 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 no. I don't think that. I think people just ate raw bacon.
Ah, really?
Like, yeah,
I did
yeah.
not see
It's
that.
fine. It's fine.
No, no.
It's fine. Don't worry. It's fine.
I haven't heard anything, bad happen from it. So
I feel like marshmallows are sanitary, right? So we're good. We're fine. That's totally
Yeah.
good. They make it all better.
Okay.
so
No? Right? Come on, Rob. Come on.
So okay, my more serious favorite part of the whole conference though was probably the contributor workshop that 201 Created put on. So Matthew Beal and Isaac Ezer were there, and they were like, it was like really like I thought it was gonna be like a an intro of like, hey, here's what you need to do, and like maybe some like examples or something. But they kind of just said, here's a list, everybody take one, and if you need help, like talk to the person next to you, and that really like forced everybody to get engaged. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like this is like an extension of they did this very similar thing at EmberConf, and I think this went just as well, if not better. Like I think we had as a percentage of people, we had like as many PRs or more PRs this time as we had at EmberConf, and it was really awesome to just like walk around the room and check, look over people's shoulder, see what they're working on, and see if they need help, and just jump in and help people. I think by the end of the night we had like 12 or 13 PRs submitted
14,
during
I
or
heard.
14. Okay, yeah, during the workshop, and a lot of them from people that either hadn't done a PR before or like to anything, or certainly to Ember. And I think that was really awesome.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think the cool part about that, in my opinion, for the contributor, I actually participated in it, which was like super fun, was that there were a set of triaged issues in a spreadsheet, and I think that um, having that for, especially for something like a contributor workshop where you know there's going to be a lot of people who are interested in actively contributing, having a triage list where it's like, oh hey, go in here, you have edit rights, just add your name to the right side, and that's your issue, and now and then there are people to help or whatever. It's such a good format. It's so good for onboarding people into open source, I think. So that was really cool. Cool. And my favorite experience on the island was being able to like hang out with the people, like Robert was saying, but very specifically, just like last year, I had this really fun time. I ended up playing volleyball with a lot of the dockyarders and a few other people, and just like last year, it was super fun. It was like, it's go out, have a good time. It's an athletic kind of thing, and you get to chit chat and talk, or whatever. But no one really keeps score or anything like that, so it's kind of fun. I don't know. It's a whole thing. So it's a second time at Wicked Good where volleyball has been my favorite part of the conference. So very cool. So we definitely want to talk about the keynotes. We're going to talk about the last keynote first, I think, mainly because Dan is actually here and he participated in the first keynote. This one was by Tom Dale and it was called Hella Good Ember. And kind of the things that I took away from this, there was a really awesome standalone Glimmer demo, which was a Hillary Clinton campaign app with Apple Pay incorporated, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the Glimmer standalone idea, like basically having he had really clever graphics talking about how, depending on where you gamble on the complexity of your application, you might go closer towards something that makes really a lot of sense for Ember or really far away. And there's a discrepancy in the direction you can migrate your applications from. So from just a sprinkle of JavaScript to very complicated, and you can go from really complicated back down to something that's less complicated. So you can go one direction, but going from something really simple to something complicated is really costly. And I think the Glimmer standalone idea is maybe an effort to help make that decision less stark, less difficult, especially at the onset of a project where I feel like a lot of Ember projects get kind of, uh, you know, put by the wayside while we do something like React or Angular or something that can be dropped in, just because the cost of making this decision is so high. So it's really neat to see Glimmer kind of stand out there. Do you guys kind of have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's actually really great. I think one of the sort of historic pain points with proponents of Ember is that folks might want to just drop, like you said, drop it on a page, or they may only have one small widget or one set of components. They don't have routing or something like that. You want to basically get your feet wet. You want to get started with the sort of Ember paradigm. Have a wonderful experience, good development environment, and sort of not have to worry about all the build tools, and then have a really nice, easily upgrade path to like full on Ember. Like, okay, now I'm moving into a full app, and it's got real routes, and it's got all the other complexities that Ember tries to sort of massage away for you. And I think that's the real story that in general we're trying to pitch, and we're working towards. Of course, there's a ton of work to do still. For example, like all of in this particular app that Tom talks about, and we'll link the keynote slides into the show notes. But all of the setup work in this case is all done manually in this particular app. It's not quite to the point where it's as easy as a normal Ember CLI app where you like drop in a thing, you have a blueprint, and it gives you and away you go. And to that end, like we've been working on, John and I have been pairing while he's been in town this week on building that sort of base framework where you can just like drop it in, create a nice project that just uses Glimmer and not have to do all of the manual wiring yourself.
Yeah, Tom had a nice slide that said this is professionals on a closed course, saying that right now it's
exactly.
really tough to get this done.
Yeah, so I think the next steps are to make it easier to do, even though it's still very much like experimental / alpha or whatever you want to call it. It's totally possible. Like he's proven it's totally possible to deploy an app if you understand the paradigms and the things going on. But I think in general, like in the broader Ember space, what we need to do is we need to make it we need to smooth that upgrade path, because to me it's extremely important, and I think to all of the core team it's extremely important that we have, if we're going to have people do this, we're going to have people start off with just a view layer, that when you do pull in routing, you don't have to throw away the stuff you've done. Like it is a requirement that it is an upgrade path that doesn't involve throwing away the work you've done, because that's one of the sort of fundamentals of Ember. Like it's vertically scalable without losing the work. You don't hit walls and have to start over. All that stuff is massively important to the development process, and like what is Ember basically.
See, Rob, it's like herding cats. Keep Rob on topic.
Yeah, I think that those are all really relevant points. I think that upgrade path is the thing that needs to be focused on in the pursuit of like making Glimmer kind of work by itself and have a migration towards Ember. Because I don't know, like I've run into personal situations where I'm like, hey, you should use Ember, and trying to describe how to get just a component layer into your app, your already existent server-side rendered app, probably Rails mainly. That's a tough story to sell, and when you have other ecosystems out there like React, this is going to be a huge like a powerful counter argument to that line of thinking. So you could say, hey, no, there's already this thing, and not only that, but you can actually eventually kind of migrate towards something that has this greater ecosystem around it. I think that's really cool.
I think one of the impressive things in Tom's keynote too was the demo app. Both implemented the beta Apple Pay that's not even fully released yet, and also the Glimmer engine plus the app code was smaller than React, just the React framework.
Yes, absolutely. And actually that was interesting. I was like, oh, so they implemented this in React and it was still less than that implementation. But the fact is the implementation and the engine was smaller than just React. And that's such an interesting thing to be able to say for something that is as performant as it is. That's really cool. And the Apple Pay thing, like I've already bookmarked all of Tom Dale's repos for Apple Pay, because I think that has implications throughout our ecosystem in general, just all over the place. I think being able to do that is going to be a really powerful tool to reach for as app developers.
It's such a win in terms of it gets rid of a barrier of getting somebody to pay for something that you may have created, because they're not punching in their credit card. They're just like, oh, let's put my thumb on this. Yep. And we're done.
Yeah, and like Tom said though, it's going to be like super dangerous for my credit card because I'm going to buy like everything. But I'm also interested to see, since basically they're using the thumbprint scanner for that. It'd be interesting to see if you can just use the thumbprint and just say validate your identity. So even if you're not necessarily doing Apple Pay, if you could just use that to say like, hey, we locked you out for a second because you were inactive. Just use your thumb real quick to like reactivate the page, which is what some apps do.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't even actually think about that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So that's slightly tricky on a website, obviously, because like in a locally installed app, you're basically authenticating that the person using the app is authorized on the device. Whereas on the website, like usually you have to figure out how to bridge the gap between the authority of using device and also of using the website, right? Like you
Yeah, I
have to
think
basically
Yeah, you'd have
match
to
them.
link it to an Apple account or something.
Yeah, like so for example, like I don't think you can directly get access to the actual thumbprint itself. I think that's
No, yeah, that's
intentional. Like there's
even
a
Apple
separate
can't.
spot on
It's
the
all
chip
in
or
the
something.
hardware.
Yeah, exactly. So you'd have to set up your system so that you can basically accept device authority or I'm sorry, device authorization as authorization on the site, which seems totally legit. Like I can't imagine anyone else actually using my phone. So like that seems like totally reasonable thing to assume actually.
although Apple is really came down hard on people that were using device IDs.
Yeah, they randomize them
The
now
device ID itself.
every
Yep.
install.
I see. Nice. That was really exciting in Tom's keynote, and I'm actually really excited about actually landing Glimmer 2 itself in Ember. We're shooting for sometime after the LTS ships. 2.8 LTS is what's currently the master branch will eventually become that LTS. We're targeting sometime after that. Hopefully 2.9. I don't like to give dates. I have been burned many times.
So 2.9,
In
you
this
heard it
stuff.
here
Yeah.
first.
You heard
Oh
it here,
no!
2.9. That's right. All right, I heard it.
But we definitely want to get people using, like, as of right now there is only a handful of tests, a large handful of tests that still need to be tweaked and fixed and worked on, maybe 100 or so less or less maybe, but for the Glimmer feature, so hopefully we can get that thing enabled and get people actually testing it in real apps and in real projects, but like so we have tons of time in the canary cycle even to deal with those changes and whatnot and get feedback and whatnot. It's really important for us to make sure that this goes super smoothly and it was not like the 113 transition where it was pretty rocky for some apps.
And then also Fastboot will then need to fall in place too as well.
Yeah, and the nice thing is that one of the big sort of barriers to some folks with fast boot is like they want rehydration, and the blocker there has literally been this effort of re-implementing the rendering engine so that we can now add layer on rehydration on top of it. So once we land this, we're like one step closer to having rehydration in fast boot, which I think is pretty awesome.
Very
Definitely. I'll be really eager to see the flicker go away from Ember Weekend. That'd be nice.
cool.
Well, if you just loaded your data into the DOM and then read it from there, you'd be all set.
Yeah, you're right. I actually I had a long conversation with who was it? I actually don't remember who I was having a conversation with, but they brought up that exact point. So yeah,
Yeah,
maybe
'cause-
there's some refactoring in my future.
Well, there's some nice primitives in Ember CLI Fast Boot recently. I believe that we called it Shoebox, although Dan
Yeah.
can confirm.
Yep, Hassan landed that.
Nice. Yeah. So like in recent 1.0 betas, you can or RCs, whichever. You can basically tell it to store things into this shoebox basically because fast boot shoebox, makes sense. You get it.
I get it. I
Um,
like it.
and it lets you basically say, hey, this stuff is important and should be available at boot in when the browser is refreshed, and that lets you like seed the Ember Data Store cache or whatever from Fastbootland and get it all the way down the wire to when it re-renders in the client, and it is essentially can let you prevent that sort of that flash
Right.
or like loading states showing when you go fetch data again, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
because the way it is now is it's doing the API calls on the server side, and then it doesn't know that all that information's there, and then redoing those AJAX calls now on the client side, and then you're getting a loading state.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was wondering if I was hitting the same database hit twice. And
Oh,
it
yeah.
definitely seems
Well,
like
I
it.
mean, but since you're serving up the server side in Phoenix, like you basically have no delay, so it's like really fast.
But yeah, going back to the shoebox real quick, there is an API in the Fastboot service that on the server side, you say, I want to put this into the shoebox, puts into a script tag, and then when you get it from the shoebox on the client side, it reads that script tag by a key.
Oh,
And
that's
there
cool.
there is there's an add-on that has been, but even before Shoebox was a thing, it was responsible for caching the Ember data store cache, basically the store contents, essentially, from the server side and persisting it through to the client side. And I believe that's been updated to use a shoebox now. I'd have to double check the add-on. I'll try to get a link in the show notes. But yeah, so like it basically even like wallpapers over top of the shoebox primitive and just does the work for you. You just include this add-on and it should cache the Ember data. Like whatever API request you do on the server, now that cache is seeded on the client once you re-render.
So one more thing I wanted to mention was that this conference had a really cool beginning. Like all of I think the first three talks were all about testing. So it was like a test first conference, and they were all really great talks.
Nice.
Test-driven conference.
TDC, right?
Yeah.
Test-driven conference. I like it. No, I love seeing the testing talks because I love how well. So I look at testing today and I see how much better it was than 1.0 when you almost basically had to just give up and just do like full stack tests like with Capybara and just like drive the site. And now you actually have a ton of options and like there's documentation and there's guides that tell you how to do this stuff, and it's like so much better than when I started. And then I see talks and they actually talk about like how to do all the things, and it's really awesome that like we're continuing to push forward and push the envelope of like how to make it even better for people that start in in like 212 or something. Like what will their experience be, and also like that we give information to people starting today, like hey, this is the right way to do these things, and testing is important and it's actually pretty straightforward. Like I said, when in pre 1.0 timeframe, testing Ember was like massively hard. And I think now, as even compared to other frameworks that are out there, I think it's one of the easiest to like get a test on the page and get it running out of the box. I think it's pretty awesome.
It'd be nice though if we had a consistent testing API between integration and acceptance tests, Rob.
Yeah,
I
who's gonna
couldn't
work
agree
on
more.
that though? Like who has the time, right?
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So as my fellow co-hosts are mentioning, I wrote an RFC, a testing RFC, that basically unifies the acceptance tests and integration tests stuff. I know it's been covered by Ember Weekend, and I believe Dan and I have talked about it as well. But the idea
Yeah,
is
I
that
feel like
the API is essentially consistent between two things and reduces a huge barrier to entry that we have and folks have. So we're actively pushing forward. We're trying to finish and land the modules RFC before we do the testing one, because I believe where things live on disk will actually change slightly, the way we test them independent, like individually, like where do the tests live and all that kind of stuff. So we're trying to do the module stuff before we do the testing stuff.
Makes a lot of sense. Definitely.
Yeah. I wanted to mention real quick that one of the very first testing talk by Trent Willis was awesome, and I learned some awesome things about Testum and about how you can use parallel to like split up your tests and run them in parallel. And that he did a bunch of work to fix some of the problems that they had with that, so you can now apply filters and everything. And so he was at LinkedIn, and they took their test suite, I think, from like 40 minutes to 2 minutes. So it was a really awesome talk. When that's up, definitely watch it. It can save you a lot of development time.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
it's been seeing some of the things that he's also on the QUnit team, and seeing some of the stuff that added to just QUnit, and QUnit 2.0 just released. We're actively working to try to get that working with latest versions of Ember QUnit and whatnot. But just the things added there are just stupendous. Things like a nice multi-select for like when you filter for a module, you want to have a nice multi-select where you can search for module names instead of like scrolling through an infinite list of like thousands of modules, stuff like that. And then also like just in general, like adding the ability to like just to do like before all or before each, and this is like a whole bunch of new features added to QUnit in general in the 2.0 push, and I'm really excited about all that stuff.
So the next thing we want to talk about is the keynote that Dan and Chris gave, Chris McCord and obviously Dan McClain. So Dan, do you want to talk us through a little bit of like the best parts, your the moments that you thought were most important about your talk?
Yeah, so it started with Chris introing Phoenix for those who weren't that aware with the framework, and I've been really excited about Phoenix when I had started working with it, and a big part of it is the channels concept, which allow you to have a persistent connection, typically over WebSockets, but it can be just raw TCP as well. But it abstracts a layer over WebSockets, so you have like you can join a channel like a chat room, and you can send messages back and forth. And with some of the work Chris has done, he's made it really easy to implement an Ember data adapter over it, and that's really what I'm driving for is putting out an add-on that gives you this Ember data adapter to do your records over the channel connections, as well as also give you make it really easy to interact with those. It gives you promises back for a lot of the stuff that wasn't promisified before, and part of the reason it isn't promisified is it's so flexible in how you respond. You can actually give it your own type of response. So it has a reply mechanism built in, but it's not only like pass fail. It could be timeout. You could give it your own like, oh, here's new data, here's old data. So really excited about doing that. A big point of that was that we started out building a whole system, both in Ember and Elixir, that would do all the work for you. And then we quickly realized that that's going to really hamstring you instead of setting you free. So we stepped it back. There's no special Phoenix code. It's just using the Phoenix idioms. But on the Ember side, I'm just providing the raw primitives for you to be able to do all this awesome work with real time through these Elixir channels.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that demo. I thought the whole talk was, I don't know, I'm really excited about Phoenix, I guess. I don't know. Chase had a lot more experience with it than I have, but I don't know. Like it's a really exciting space, especially after Mike North had a really great example of how you could use Phoenix to great effect to reduce these like multiple like asynchronous tasks and kind of like try to put them on top of each other, that sort of thing. So yeah, I'm blown away by the potential here. One of the things that I didn't necessarily understand, but I realized that or I recognize it as kind of a really important thing that's just recently come into Phoenix, which is the presence concept, where things auto reconcile. Could you talk a little bit about that, Dan?
Yeah, so it actually launched a week or two ago with Phoenix 112, and what it is a stateless presence. Um, Using presence to find presence is not the best way to explain it, but it allows you to see who's connected to your channel. So it is stateless in that if you have multiple nodes, so in Elixir and thus Erlang, you can connect to running servers together through their interconnects, and it will actually use vector clocks and figure out it will sync up the data from one to another. So what happens is if you have a net split, these two nodes have their local presence available, but when they reconnect, they can then resync them back. And since it's stateless and like either somebody's there or not, it automatically does all this work for you.
Yeah, that was like the experience that I had with it with this app work on this client app. Using presence solved like this major problem that I was having where we had this chat room and we wanted to know how many people were live in the room. And so I like asked a message in like the Elixir Slack, and Chris answered like really fast and was like, "Oh, that's in present. That's in like 1.2 RC." And so I added it, and it was like super easy to implement, except for I was having like a slight problem with like a couple little things about like the terminate and like the join hooks. Like you're still in the list when those get fired, and I was trying to like send them off in the wrong way. And basically, you were still being counted in that list because I was manually totaling them. And he gave me like some pointers about like I'm kind of doing it the wrong way, like it should be done a different way. But also, I think he was thinking about adding a account to that because the that presence data kind of suffers from the same problem that JSON API suffers from. Whereas like when you have a bunch of relationships, even though you're not giving all the data, if you have like 10,000 relationships, you're sending this massive payload. So I think he's going to add support, or he was thinking about how to deal with when you just want to count of like how many other people are in the room or how many other people are, in our case was watching a live stream. That totally helped me out a lot.
Yeah, I'm also I'm curious how to address some issues in like in the Ember data and how things will work with like if you subscribe to the things, how do you like if you have all these events coming across, how do you like unsubscribe or like clear like unload records? I think that's like more of an Ember data problem in general, and I know the Ember data team is working on it. But I was curious, Dan, what your thoughts were.
Yeah, another thing, in addition to that, I was talking to Alex Machinier a little bit too, and he was saying that he made a good point that the model hook now isn't really going to be ready for async, or not async, but real time connections like these uh, persistent connections, because it kind of assumes this back and forth response, request response cycle, as opposed to I'm gonna have some info, and like, because when you're in the model hook, you may want to start. You say you want to open your connection, but you really typically want to have your listeners set up so that when you open the connection, you're catching things right away. And in the model hook, you have no controller, so it's kind of difficult in that sense to be able to have that connection. But in terms of what Rob was talking about, with like you're in a chat room and then you go away from that chat room to another one, you don't want to, or you may want to continue receiving those responses back from the channel. And it's like, how do we make that easy? I mean, right now the answer is like the deactivate hook, or maybe in a before model, like cleaning up from previous ones, or there's multiple different ways, but there's no clean way right now.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've done in the past in our work app is use setup controller and reset controller as places to subscribe and then unsubscribe, because deactivate only fires when you leave the route. So
Oh yeah.
if you go from like post/1 to post/2, you don't get deactivate, but you do get a model hook. So, and if you're subscribing in the model hook, and this is part of what Alex was talking about, if you subscribe in the model hook, then that means that you've leaked the subscription for all of the ones you've done prior to the last one, if you use deactivate. So I completely agree. It's definitely tricky business, and we need to like from a framework perspective, we need to come up with either additional hooks, or better semantics around the hooks, or sort of paper over it better with like Ember Data, or other third party APIs.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised, because I mean, real time wasn't really a big thing even just a few years ago in terms of like this type of connection inside of a JavaScript client.
Right.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this add-on though, because there's some complexity with just manually implementing the Phoenix JS stuff, where like when you subscribe to these topics, if you have to like manually reuse the same socket so that you're not opening multiple. And if you try to subscribe to the same topic, it will close the last connection you had. So if you had two components showing kind of the same data, and they both tried to subscribe, one of them will get shut down. So you end up having to do like channel caching yourself. So just having like a way, like an add-on that lets you basically say, I want to listen to this thing, and then kind of just keep a count of who's listening and how many people are and like what hooks they have. That would help out tremendously, because there's some really subtle bugs that we introduced into the when we were working on this client app, where we were unsubscribed to certain events, and it was really hard to trace back why that was happening.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like the feedback as well, because I mean, this mostly started as a pet project, so having some real life examples will definitely help shape it as well. So let's connect after this as well.
Oh yeah. I wasn't using I wasn't saying it was your library. I was just like I'm implementing it myself, which I really don't want to have to implement, because it's a React Native project, and so I'm having to do the same kind of like wrap the whole thing in a promise, and and it's a huge task to get it all right. And it'd be nice to just be able to drop in in an Ember project, to just be able to drop it in and have the solution, because it's totally there's a lot of like subtle complexity when you're trying to just implement it yourself, and all you really want to do is get your work done, but now you have to write this library around another library to make it kind of behave in your kind of framework. So it'd be really nice in Ember to just have a drop-in solution that deals with all those in a known way, and so I don't have to know all those kind of subtle behaviors of Phoenix.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, exactly, and that's honestly that's one of the huge wins of our add-on ecosystem, where there's a ton of things that are like complex. Like think about Ember concurrency. It's done roughly everything as an add-on, and it massively simplifies a lot of the super complicated async stuff, around object life cycles, and like prevention of like duplicate tasks, like just tons of things. EmberConcurrency.com has a ton of examples as well, and so I think that's exactly the thing. Like Chase, what you're saying, that's exactly the thing we need to move forward. Like something that like wraps the complexity. Like it is complex. Like there's many async things all interacting with each other, so it's going to be complex. The key is wrapping that all up in a nice API, and not forcing the complexity onto the users, onto our developers. And I think that's what like the add-on ecosystem's really been great about.
Yeah, and that's
I'm
why,
really excited
as the
about that.
add-on author, I want want to hear what the issues are. 'Cause I wanna
Exactly.
help.
Exactly.
Right. Totally.
Definitely. Definitely. All right, so I would be remiss to not talk about the amazing Tom Dale troll in your keynote. So how long did it take you and Chris to recognize that you were being trolled by Tom Dale?
I, knowing Tom and seeing where he immediately went, noticed it immediately, and I think Chris caught on pretty quickly because I
So
think
what
within a
was his
second
main
of
his
it,
main question was why use like a 30-year-old piece of technology for Elixir, yeah, for those that
Well,
may not know.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
how did they leverage Elixir when they hadn't discovered async at the time of its creation?
yeah,
okay.
it started off with why wouldn't you use Node instead of Phoenix, and then it quickly spun out into name calling and all that. But Chris handled it very well. He noticed it pretty quick that it was a troll as well, and also started making some very salient points on why your Node app may be more or less performant than a Phoenix app, which the concurrency model of Elixir and Erlang handle the issues much better than Node does out of the box.
Yeah, I got the impression that that Chris has heard the node argument a few times. So maybe I'm wrong in that, but I'm pretty sure he had that one in the bag. But that was still kind of a delightful little humorous second there at the end of your keynote. So
Yep, and my favorite part of it though was that even Tom's side of it, I think, was still a stab at Node. Even though he was trolling the keynote, it was more trolling Node in the end.
yeah, I think you're right. Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Good. Okay, so so I guess the last little bit we're gonna cover here is just big shout out to Dockyard for putting Wicked Good on. It's a great conference. They do a really good job. Really appreciate that. And maybe throw a shout out to a thing that they mentioned, which is another Ember conference called San Diego EmberConf that they're attempting to put on in January, which is perfect timing for all the people in Boston to make a trip to someplace warm, so it'll be pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's like I like to think of it as them fleeing the White Walkers, and they're
So final thoughts. Let's go through. Anyone have anything final thoughts about Wicked Good and how how you thought how you thought it went and all that stuff?
Yeah, I
Always
think
be prepared for the Tom Dale troll.
Another great title for this
sage
episode.
advice. We should I should make sure whenever I'm speaking at a conference, always ask, is Tom going to be there?
Yeah.
oh, that's actually one thing I learned. I've been to more Wicked Goods than Tom Dale, so like I'm beating him in something.
Yeah.
That's an important thing.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, yeah. So thanks for listening. Very much appreciate you guys constantly coming out and giving us feedback and letting us know what you think about our show. At any point in time, if you want to reach out to us, Ember Weekend, you can reach out to us at Ember Weekend on Twitter. We have an RSS feed on our website, EmberWeekend.com, and EmberLand. You guys have a Twitter as well.
Yeah, our Twitter is Land of Ember, and also we have a contact form on our site at Ember.land/contact.
Awesome. Yeah. So tune in to our Twitter feeds, and once again, reach out to us if you have questions. We love when we get some questions to answer and respond to on the show. Yeah. And outside of that, I think that's it. Thanks for working with us, Dan and Rob. Really appreciate it, and we'll be back next week.
I'm always glad to inflict the job of hurting Rob on other people.
Hey, I just have to say, I know we already basically did the closing, but that's fine. I just have to say that every time I listen to Ember Weekend, I like want to shout through my radio in my car when I'm playing, like, no, do this other thing, no.
Yeah.
So you should totally tweet at them and shout at them for me. But of course, when you listen to EmberLand, you of course agree with everything. So it's, so there's nothing to really.
I've never shouted at EmberLand. It's a true story.
No, it's great. Thank you guys. Thanks for listening very much.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you next time.
See you next
And we'll
weekend.
see you whenever EmberLand records.